Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The X, a new podcast about how experience shapes everything from products to services to entire businesses. I'm your host, Brian McLean, and I'm here with Demetrius Madrigal. Today, we're going to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and how it's changing human behavior. Hello, my friend. Episode 3 already. We're moving right along.
Yeah, this one should be a good one. I think there's going to be a lot of long-term behavior change because of this period of lockdown and global pandemic.
Yeah, this one was a little bit more challenging for me to kind of prepare for because so much ran through my mind, right? As being a behavioral researcher, like I'm seeing so many things shift, so many trends start to emerge that are different from what we have before. But I definitely have some things I wanted to bring up today. And if you want to just jump right in, one of them is this whole shopping from home, delivery to the house thing. I feel like we have kind of increased in our family delivery by like 100%. And I feel like it's something that's probably not going to change ever in the future, right? Because like I don't know about you, but I haven't really missed going to stores anymore, right? Like I just enjoy everything being just dropped off on my front porch.
Yeah, I think so. Like we're already getting some occasional deliveries, and I think the grocery delivery is going to be a huge thing going forward, especially for non-perishable goods. Like most of the only issues we've run into has been like produce and stuff, sometimes showing up and it's not any good and it needs to go away. But I think that one thing that I've had just an absolutely great experience with has been curbside pickup. Like if there's something wrong with your order, you can address it right away.
Oh,
It's
totally.
it's also like for us, it's an opportunity to get out of the house and be relatively safe and not be just stuck in one place forever. And it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
convenient. You do all your shopping through some kind of a digital portal, and then you you show up to the place, you text them or something, they bring it up right out to the car. It's kind of like old car hops.
Did you try the Target one yet?
I haven't tried the Target one. We've done a few different like I've done one for food. I did we did another one at a Total Wine because
Oh,
alcohol
nice.
has been a major component of the pandemic experience. We did a few other things, but every time it's like, oh, okay, well, oh, this one thing was wrong. Can you correct for us? And boom, it got corrected. And it was local businesses. It's like 5-10 minutes from our house. Like it's something that anybody can do that don't have to worry about delivery drivers, and it can potentially leave some cars off the road, that kind of stuff. I think it's a great opportunity moving forward.
Yeah, we did the Target one, which was super amazing. We basically hop on the Target app and you could share your location. And then as we're driving over there, they kind of know where we're at. And then the second that we pull into the spot, I just got out and I opened up the trunk and I got back in the car and they walked out and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" And then they dropped everything in our trunk and then boom, we took off because they
Yeah,
already knew that we were there once we
yeah.
drove up. So, I mean, these new processes are pretty amazing, right? I absolutely love it. And you're right, getting out is so important, right? Because we have
Mhm.
everything delivered here a lot, especially when you're ordering from like places like Amazon and stuff like that. But just to get out into the world and move around a little bit in a safe way has been great for the mental health.
Yeah, and I've noticed like with so early on we did some door dashing and we just had like this string of inaccurate deliveries. Like things were delivered to the wrong house, or were missing products or whatever it was. So I switched to kind of the pickup, especially considering there's much less traffic and like we're working from home all the time. So it's very easy to go and pick it up. And a few times I've been like, oh, you forgot this or forgot that. And they just fixed it and it was easy. And then I also noticed that a lot of these are just local restaurants who are using DoorDash. I mean, there are some issues with the DoorDashes and the Grubhubs when it comes to how they're affecting restaurants. But
Yeah.
it was, from a user perspective, a great experience. And it also, I noticed, it just provides this kind of turnkey platform for the local companies, local restaurants, in order to get online when they weren't online before. And I think something like that can come up for local hardware stores, something like that, where you just have a curbside delivery turnkey operation where people just sign up, they load up their inventory onto the software, and then people can use it to browse from home and then show up and pick up their stuff.
So pretty much, I think any company that didn't have a digital presence is now going to have one. I think it's impossible with the pandemic and then also beyond the pandemic to have a storefront that doesn't offer some sort of either curbside pickup or delivery. So you see things like the company Shopify, their stock is like skyrocketed because I think a lot of people see this as the beginning of kind of the end of the old ways, right? And I see that as a behavioral researcher already happening. I'm looking at the trends and for sure things are moving in this direction. And what I'm noticing is that these stores are becoming warehouses. Okay. This is something that like actually Macy's said that they were kind of doing, right? They shut down a lot of low performing stores. And then the stores that, are in like big areas where they get a lot of foot traffic, they'll keep those open. But they also become inventory stores. So when you place an order online at like Macy's.com, for example, they pull, I believe, I'd have to double check this, but I thought I read that they pull it directly from the nearest store, drop it into a box and mail it out. I mean, that's essentially what Amazon is doing with their warehouses. So you're basically enabling these other companies that weren't doing as much throughput on the delivery to use their existing footprint to do that. And I feel like it could be the same thing for food because I have done pickup of food as well as delivery. Okay. And the delivery is great if you're busy or something and they'll bring it over and drop it off on the front door. That's super awesome. But also I've went to a couple different Mediterranean places locally because I love Mediterranean food. And I just walk up. You don't even go inside. You pay for it over the Yelp app and
Yep.
then you walk right up to the door and then they say, "Oh, Brian?" And I go, "Yep." And then they just hand me a bag and I walk away and that's it. And we both are wearing masks and everyone's comfortable and now I'm buying a ton of food from a lot of these different places where before, when this all first started, we just kind of stopped going out altogether because we didn't know what the rules and regulations and what the right thing and the safe thing to do. And now I feel like this new behavior has occurred where people love to just go pick it up and then go, I don't know, sit at home and eat it in their backyard.
Yeah, I feel like these were all things that kind of existed previous to the pandemic. This was all available. And then there was kind of a last frontier, like a final change, and that was the low tech mom and pop shops. And I think that this can really push that over the edge so those people get on board also. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that will provide a little bit of a leveling of the playing field between these mom and pop shops, even on a retail level, and kind of the larger corporations. So you can just as easily go to your local mom and pop hardware store and get curbside delivery through some mobile app that's run by a company who then is in partnership with the mom and pop hardware store, as you can using the Home Depot app or a Lowe's app or something along those lines.
I already do that, and and I don't do it with hardware stores, but I do it with food. Is that you can go to your normal chain stores and have stuff delivered or whatever, but like I just use the Yelp app and have it pulled through there. And I think they filter everything through Grubhub, so that way that the smaller stores or establishments, just use this third party service in order to do it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just feel like this is such a fundamental shift. Like you said, it already existed, but now it's like people were forced to do it. So when they learn a new habit, then they kind of go, "Hey, that's not too bad," or "I really like that." I mean, even my mother-in-law,
Yeah.
I mean, she does, she's older, so she wanted to do contactless delivery of food and she started using the Walmart.com
Mm-hmm.
app, and it was great. She said she sits up and she goes through her laptop or on her phone and picks out all this food. She has a white table she puts inside of the garage and leaves the garage door open. And then during delivery day, she just has a little note that says, "Please leave everything here." They leave everything on the table for her, and then she cleans it all and takes it into the house. She said it's seamless. She said, "I can't imagine ever going back." She said,
Yeah.
"I love the Walmart
Yeah.
delivery."
You know what this reminds me of? This is gonna this is gonna blow your mind a little bit. It reminds me of the Pepsi challenge. You remember the Pepsi challenge?
Yeah, that was like the 90s,
So
right?
I want to say it was the 70s and 80s, but basically it
Oh,
was the reason why it reminds me of that is because at the time everybody was buying Coke. Coke was the dominant product in the and then Pepsi said, "Hey, we're winning all of these taste tests that we're doing behind closed doors. Maybe we can bring them out, make that into an ad campaign, and maybe that'll be successful." And I think what happened was everybody who was just drinking Coke, who had kind of like this mindset of like, no, Coke is the one, Pepsi's an also ran, whatever. They were like, oh, hey, they see this and they're motivated, like, hey, maybe I should give it a try. It's like a $1 investment or less than that back then. 50 cents of an investment in order to try something to see if I like it better. And
Yeah.
it's kind of that in this case where it's like, hey, I'm not going to do this for so long because I'm used to a certain thing, but now I'm motivated to try it. And now that I'm trying it, I'm finding that I'm liking it. And that's causing
Yeah.
an acceleration in the shift that it was already starting with the industries.
That is a really good example of a case study of what it looks like right now. You're right.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so much shifting. I mean, the other thing too, I'm noticing, and you could, tell me also if you're seeing the same thing or feeling the same thing, is that right now there's a lot of anxiety, right? Like people wake up in the morning and they're kind of nervous, they're not sure what's going on. All the news seems to be very, very negative, and people are concerned and stuff. More now than ever, people are telling me that they're seeking out help from therapists remotely,
Yeah.
and that they're talking to people, just kind of trying to kind of just relax a little bit and feel better about everything that's going on, and being also locked kind of in the house all the time, right? Not having a lot of outlets and stuff.
Hmm.
Is that it's almost like therapy doesn't have this taboo anymore. And it was already starting to disappear, but not at
Yeah.
this rate. Like everyone I talk to now is like, "Oh yeah, I connected with a remote, therapist to kind of talk about how I'm feeling, and now I feel so much better because I have this person every week I can talk to, and the price is totally reasonable, and we do it over Zoom." And I'm like, wow, like that whole taboo is crumbling.
Well, I think there's a variety of reasons around that. One of the first things I'll point out is that I feel like this whole experience is just accelerating the kind of telecommunications and telepresence industries. They've been around for a long time, but I think that it's both pushing users to use it more, and it's also forcing the companies to evolve. So we've seen Zoom, for example, go through multiple updates and multiple changes, and they're updating their infrastructure, and they're doing everything super fast forward in order to adjust to the massive explosion in demand, and also what they're uncovering from all these new users hopping on the platform as far as the way that they need to evolve. Now, in as a result of that, I think we're finding that things like therapy, which traditionally have been avoided for a variety of reasons, including the time commitment of taking time off and driving to the location and going inside and all that, both psychological and physical commitment is now kind of eliminated, and it's easier for them to get involved, to get started. The barrier to entry is much lower. And I think remote services in general, not just therapy, but a variety of different remote services are going to have a significant increase in adoption after this.
Yeah, I think there's actually going to be a huge boom in it. I think once this kind of, I don't know, once a vaccine comes out or a therapy or whatever that shows that everyone will be okay if they end up getting COVID, I think people are going to say, "Hey, I kind of liked talking to somebody and it felt really good." And because of that, I think I'm going to continue this, and I think we're going to see a boom in remote services, specifically in mental health. And I think it's going to be great for everyone. I think
Yeah.
they're going to need it. The other thing that I've noticed was I think there's going to be a downturn in commercial real estate. So a lot of the people that I've talked to that are outside of the tech industry, who work in areas like therapy and massage and all these different areas, they basically have been telling me that they're not going to keep their offices. So they said, well, there's really no point right now. People don't want to meet in person. It could be a couple of years before people are comfortable again. I think I'm going to let my lease go. And I think what you're going to do is you're going to start seeing, like we did a long time ago, like when the tech industry just started kind of unfolding in Silicon Valley, where people were all working from their garages and homes.
Yeah.
And then eventually, as their company starts to grow or their service starts to become more popular, then they go out and they try to find commercial space to rent.
Yeah.
But because of the cost of commercial space is so high, and because everyone is working from home and everybody wants to connect remotely, I think you're going to see a lot of leases get canceled or not get renewed, and I think you're going to see a downturn in the market.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that unfortunately is going to negatively affect a lot of people who provide in-person services that can only be provided in person. Things like chiropractors and massage therapists and acupuncturists. You can't really do that through a Zoom call, and I think that's one area that's going to get going to get hurt, which I think that actually points out an area that we should kind of consider is that there are some areas where the pandemic is setting them back. I think one of them that stands out for me is online education, especially for the K through 12s. I think people are going to have a very kind of negative connotation towards it. I think it's a lot of work for parents right now. I think it's been a real challenge for teachers. It was kind of thrown into the deep end without a lot of the natural ramp up that would happen normally. And
Hmm.
I think what we might see is that for adult education, it's going to continue to grow, but I think it's going to be a setback for children's education.
I would agree with that. My son is 5 years old and was in kindergarten when all this happened, right? And so they had to quickly convert to online education. And the way that worked was a family member for us, we were very lucky, and my mother in law stayed here. So she was helping out, and she used to be a kindergarten teacher. So that was like a huge blessing. But anyway, so what we did was is they would have Zoom calls a couple days a week, and the kids would connect, and then they'd have a whole bunch of homework that needs to be done, and then you would take pictures of the homework with your phone, or you can scan it or whatever works for you. Then you have to upload it to a shared folder, and then the teacher would review it and then provide comments and feedback. And that's kind of how we made it through that like 2.5, 3 month period. Now, as we're coming into the fall, and people are concerned about people being sick, and then kids getting sick and then bringing it home, especially if you have an elderly parent living with you or something like that. They're talking about offering full distance learning or halftime distance learning, where they kind of really separate the kids and all that. And it's tough because I think that some kids will be fine and they'll thrive through it, and
Hmm.
they'll get into second grade and just go back to school and everything will be cool. And then some kids, they don't. They do better in the classroom in front of the teacher and having to interact with other kids, and have kids say no to them, and not everything is given to them or is easy for them because the parent's sitting next to them saying, "You can do it. You can make this happen." But they have to struggle through stuff, which is super important for growth, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mess. And also, I feel really bad for the teachers and administrators because they're kind of being forced to go back to some extent. And they're concerned about getting sick too. And they're
Yeah.
concerned about bringing something to the school if they get exposed or whatever. So there's a lot of mixed emotions, but it's really changing the education system. It made me realize that, especially when the kids are older, how independent they can be. Because I have some friends that have older kids, and they said the kids were like, "Hey, we got a lot of work to do, so I'm going to go in the bedroom." And they would hop on their laptop, they jump on their calls, they were reading all day long. They would connect with other students and work on homework assignments together. And they said they were just doing 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
like of just study hall almost, basically.
Yeah, and I think that there's ultimately some value to be found for remote education, but there's also just something that is essential about having that experience of being in a social environment with your cohort, learning how to interact with people that you might not normally choose to interact with, and it's so much easier for I think teachers to manage children's attention, keeping them engaged, interacting with them when it's in person, as opposed to when you have 10, 15, 20 people on a Zoom call and some of the people who fade into the background, they just, the teacher doesn't have the opportunity to kind of resurface them.
Oh, absolutely. And parents are not teachers.
Yeah.
Like, none of us know how to teach like that, right? Like, it's incredibly challenging. And when you have a bunch of kids in a room and you have a teacher that is the authority figure, and they say, "Okay, everyone sit down, we're going to get started." And then suddenly all the kids sit down, is a lot different than trying to ask your child to sit down when they don't feel the same about you as they do about their teacher. They like having the separation between teacher and parent,
Yeah.
right? So it's a tough time right now, and I think we'll look back and learn a lot definitely from it. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about was, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this topic, because I know that this was a topic that you had brought up yourself, and said like, "Hey, let's do this as our third episode." Is, I think what happened with the pandemic is it actually created the largest deprivation study in modern history.
Oh yeah.
Now, for those of you who don't understand what a deprivation study is, so in psychology, Demetrius and I every so often will be asked by a company to recruit people, and then the study that we're going to run is not like, oh, hey, here's this new product. Why don't you try it out and let us know what you think? What we do is we actually take something away from them. So let's say, for example, we wanted to study what it's like for people who don't have a smartphone for a couple of weeks or cannot have their smartphone for a couple of weeks, what actually happens to their behavior. So you recruit these people and then you say, okay, everybody hand over their smartphone. And then for the next 2 weeks, you just have to try to work, try to exist, live your life without something that you've had in your hand every day since 2007 or whatever it is.
Yep.
And then you study what they feel like and what happened and what behavior changed because that item was missing. Well, right now, people are locked in their homes for the most part and told to kind of stay there, right? They're not going on vacation. They're not going out as often. They're not going to stores. They're not seeing friends. They're not hugging people. They're not throwing parties, hopefully, if they want to stay safe. So what you're doing is depriving them of a typical pattern that they had prior to the pandemic. And you're also depriving them of a lot of activities that provided joy, relaxation, and things like that. And then the outcome is what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
So what individual families are seeing in their homes, but what we're collectively seeing as a society. So this is going to be fascinating, especially for you and I being behavioral researchers and like studying this stuff for the purpose of developing tools, technology. But I wanted to get your perspective on thinking about this as a large deprivation study.
Well, I think that one of the most useful aspects of a deprivation study is that you quickly uncover what features of our product or what products are actually essential, which are real needs, and which are more a matter of perception. And I think that there are definitely things that people are recognizing that, like, oh, I guess I didn't need this all along. For me, one of the biggest things that stands out, we talked about in-person services. For me, it's one of the biggest things is haircuts. Like I do not, I don't really miss having my haircut. Like my hair has grown out pretty nicely. Everybody's giving me compliments on it, and I don't miss having to make appointments and drive there and pay a bunch of money in order to have my haircut by a professional when it's really not that necessary. And the fact that that's helped by the fact that I don't have to show up for in-person meetings and things like that. But there's so much that I'm finding that I never really needed. How about for you? Anything standing out for you that you've realized you don't need?
Oh yeah, my wife and I had this conversation yesterday about it. Is that I told her, I said I kind of felt bad in a way because like we had all these different things that we would do on a regular basis. Okay, we'd have all these things scheduled in, from swim classes to baseball to, like you said, like haircuts and this and that, and we actually didn't even realize how exhausted we were.
Yeah.
Like we would show up at these things tired with a coffee in our hand, and I was like, why didn't we just say no to this stuff before? Like, why did we wait until this pandemic forced us to stop doing these things, to realize that we're happier when we're all just hanging out together and just going to the beach, or, having backyard barbecues, and more likely picking activities that we all enjoy and we can do on our own time and isn't such a hard and fast schedule. And so I've learned that like a lot of that stuff, it didn't provide a ton of joy. I mean, it was
Hmm.
fun because like our son plays, some sports and stuff, and he really enjoys those, and it's fun watching him. But there's like these hard schedules of all these things that have to happen like every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, right? It's almost like you're creating this strict schedule for your life. And then suddenly like years and years go by and you're like, did I really even enjoy that stuff? So what we're kind of learning is just hanging out at home, spending time with family has been a lot better. My wife in particular, she used to commute a lot. And
Oh yeah.
so right now it comes out, we did the math, it's about 2.5 hours extra per day that she can do whatever she wants with.
Yeah.
Usually she ends up spending that time working only because, she's busy right now. But not having the commute has created so much relaxation in our family. Like dinner time's a great example. What would happen is I would go pick up my son from school and then race home and then get dinner started, and then she would show up usually 45 minutes later, and then I was trying to get everything on the table, or we would just heat stuff up. Like if she was still hungry, maybe she would eat on the way. It was always kind of like hacking everything together because of the schedules. And now every day, right at 5 o'clock, usually when our son gets hungry, boom, we make dinner and then we just go walk outside and sit out back, because it's warm right now, and have dinner and just enjoy ourselves. And we don't have to like wait for everyone to show up and feel rushed and stressed about it. We just kind of enjoy our life.
Yeah.
So there's a lot we've learned. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg of like things that we can get rid of and and
Yeah, it's
and
interesting you bring up the
and
commutes.
processes that make us happier.
I feel like so much of it is when you're in the middle of a deprivation study, what are the things you miss? What are the things you don't miss? What are the things you replace? One of the things that I think everybody realizes they don't miss is the commute.
No.
One of the things that really stood out for me, because for us, the commute was irregular, right? We would sometimes have to commute, sometimes not. Traffic, the absence of traffic on the road has just really awakened for me how much I enjoy driving when I'm not sitting in traffic for 2 hours, right? It's like it's really such a different experience.
Yeah, and also the other one too that I realized is the amount of time you have in a day feels so much longer,
Oh yeah,
right? Because you're not when you get up in the morning, right? You used to kind of like rush to get everything done so you can get out the door and then sit in traffic to make it to a
oh yeah,
meeting or whatever it is. Just to be able to casually get up and kind of roam around, clean up, and then boom, hop on a quick Zoom call and then walk outside, have lunch. Like the days feel longer. And I
oh
love
my god.
that.
So one of the things I should have brought up earlier that didn't even occur to me till now is like, how much has this pandemic brought back breakfast?
Oh, oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, we've gone through so many research sessions where we're talking to people about their day, and almost every single person talks about how much of a pressure cooker and kind of a nightmare their mornings are just to get everybody out of the house. And now mornings are just like I'm gonna wake up relatively naturally. I'm gonna go make myself some eggs and a slice of toast and drink my cup of coffee and have like a real breakfast, which I feel like I haven't done in like a decade or longer. That when
Hmm.
if I wasn't on vacation, and it's an amazing shift. And I wonder to what extent everybody's having this experience.
Yeah. Do you miss going on vacation though?
Well, I mean, we're business owners. So I go on vacation once every 2 or 3 years. So other than like a couple days off here and there to go on short trips. So, I mean, it's to some extent it's an extended staycation. Like the even we're working and we have a lot going on, but because we have so much more time, I feel like I'm able to engage in so many other activities. So I will I miss to some extent traveling, yes, but the kind of freedom of a vacation I feel like I'm getting right now in weird ways, even though I can't do certain things. Like I can't go to a bar or a gym or to Disneyland or anything. And at the same time, there's so much that I've been meaning to do around the house that I now kind of have the time to jump into.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. It's this weird 50-50. Like half the time I'm like, wow, like I have so much extra time now. Like I'm doing all these fun activities and building things in the garage and fixing, toys and stuff like that. But on the other side of it, like we were planning on doing a trip where we had to go down to LA for a member to meet up with some friends and do some stuff for work. And I was like, oh man, I was kind of looking forward to that. Like I thought it'd be a lot of fun to go visit some of our friends and go to that conference. And, you know, there's a little part of me that kind of misses some of those activities and stuff. And also like being somebody who really loves Hawaii and I have parents that live there and you have family that live there. Like I would definitely love to go back and just swim and relax and hang out and that kind of stuff. But I know that's
Yeah,
not going to happen anytime soon.
but I also feel like that's not a shift from the pre-pandemic times. It's like anytime I can get a chance to go to Hawaii is just like it's just a constant yearning.
Yeah, exactly. So predictions for the future. This is a big one. I mean, everybody is doing this right now, trying to figure out like what does this all mean. What are your thoughts on the big changes, like two or three big changes that are going to stick? So,
Yeah,
let's say we all get a vaccine next summer, right?
yeah.
After next summer, what's going to stay that wasn't here prior to the pandemic?
Well, I think the transformation, kind of the retail and food industries are going to be huge. I think that delivery and curbside pickup for those industries is going to extend to every level from the major large corporations down to the mom and pop shops. And that slow motion change that's been going on for quite a while is just going to complete its transformation. It's going to continue to be accelerated through the duration of this pandemic. And on the other side of it, I think you might have a company, or hopefully a few companies, that are stepping into that new infrastructure white space, providing a turnkey software solution for local delivery and pickup for and curbside pickup for these small companies. And maybe it's Amazon, maybe it's a new company, but I think we're going to potentially have a new major player just providing that service for your local store in order to get online and provide this ordering experience for people.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that the big change that's never going back is work from home.
Yeah.
There's so many companies now that are like, you know what, if you're productive and you're getting your work done, like you could just come back whenever you feel like coming back. Or, if we have an office, then you're welcome to come in, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And you're not going to be judged by it. Like in the past, people would tell me that they were concerned about working from home too much because they would get passed up for promotion and things like that. I think all that stuff has disappeared. I think most of the companies that allow that kind of stuff, mostly they're like tech companies and stuff like that, but they're going to be more kind of liberal about just letting you do what you want to do as long as you're getting your work done and you're performing. I mean, I think I think it was Stuart Butterfield from Slack said it best. Like, who am I to tell some of my workers that if they want to go live next to their family in another state so that they can be close to their family and raise their kids in a more comfortable location, that they can't do that, especially if they're performing really well and getting all their work done. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I completely
And
agree. I think this experience has kind of been like a forced experiment for working from home for people who are capable of doing so. And there's long been a concern that if everybody works from home, then they're just not going to be productive. And I think that on midway through this and on the other side of this, a lot of these tech companies or other companies that can support work from home are going to take a look at it and say, oh well, they were quite productive. In some cases, maybe they had increased productivity. And they can look at that as opposed to their cost of maintaining these large facilities, these office buildings. And they can realize that they can save a lot of money by just allowing people to work from home and for them to just have like pared down facilities that mostly hosts equipment and office and minor office space, some meeting space. People can go into the office from time to time, but I think they're going to see a major economic incentive for allowing many more people to work remotely.
I agree, and I understand that a lot of people can't work remotely. Like don't get me wrong. Like you and I are not, uh, you know, under the assumption that everyone can do this. It's just that there are a lot of companies that are going to be digital companies, are digital companies, are going to be digital companies, or thinking about heading in the direction of being a full time digital company. And the people who support them, I mean, hey, if they can work from home, let them work from home.
Yeah.
It also cuts down on emissions and traffic issues, and there's a whole host of reasons why working from home is really good. In many cases. But I think this was a great episode, Dee. I really enjoyed chatting about this. I'm glad you brought this up and thought that this would be something that listeners would be interested in, especially coming from people like ourselves who focus on human behavior. And this whole thing is one big science experiment that we're every day researching and learning about. And I think we can probably talk about for 20 hours. But with that said, what are we talking about next week?
So next week we're going to dig in on the restaurant industry. How is it going to have to change in response to the other side of the pandemic, the needs of the users? Where are restaurants going for the future?
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.